Hey there, my name is Shauna McGrath. Welcome to your weekly astrology forecast. This is for the week of March 30th through April 5th. So, what's going on this week? Before I jump into the astrology of this week, I just want to check in and see how you're doing, see how you're feeling at this point in time, because this is always the starting point that we want to begin with. We always want to begin with where it is that you are right now in your life, and how you're feeling and what's actually happening in your life right now, because without that, there's no the astrology is flat when we have nothing to lay it upon. So that's always how I start my client sessions, my client work, as we check in with what's going on. So leave me a comment and let me know what's going on in your life, the things that you're working with now that are most present for you. And then we will do our best to lay the astrology onto this. And so if you're watching live, definitely leave me a comment and let me know that you can hear me and where you're tuning in from. I always love hearing from you. So there's a few different things that are happening this week with Mars, which is the planet that's about physical vitality. It's also about assertiveness and boldness and strength that comes from a sense of passion. All right, so we're going to talk about Mars today, and this is a bit more of a freestyle. This is a little experiment, so I hope that you enjoy this. We're also going to talk about Venus. Venus is making some changes this week as well, and then we will talk about Mercury. So each of these planets have different themes. Venus, of course, is about relationships. We talked about Venus a bit last week. And then Mercury, of course, is about communication. So as I'm speaking about these things, what I want you to keep in mind is how the things that I'm saying, the themes, the patterns that I'm talking about, how that relates to your life now, maybe something that either is a challenge that you're working with or something that you want to harness, that you want to bring into your life. And we'll talk about ways to do that. All right, so first thing that's happening that's early in the week is Mars is going to move into the sign of Aquarius. So Mars has been in Capricorn for a little bit. And Mars does really well in Capricorn. It allows us to tap in to the energy that is about fighting for something, that's about like moving forward and expressing yourself, and it can be a very dynamic kind of energy. So Mars moving into the sign of Aquarius, the way that we move and the way that we are physical, there is a change that will happen here. And what's really important about this is not just that Mars is changing signs, but that also it will conjunct Saturn when it does this, because Saturn is just in the very beginning degrees of Aquarius. So Saturn's literally at 0 degrees Aquarius now. So Mars-Saturn as a combination is, it's a very yang energy. It's very action-oriented and masculine and direct, especially when we're talking about Aquarius, that is an air sign and a fixed air sign. So fixed signs are Aquarius, Scorpio, Leo, and who am I forgetting? Taurus. So these signs, no matter what the element is, there is a digging in and a drive towards sustaining. So even though Aquarius is an air sign, there is this like drilling down and digging in. So Mars, Saturn together can really allow us to do a lot of work to move Mars, to lay a foundation, Saturn. It can feel heavy, especially with everything that we're dealing with in the world right now. So I just want you to watch out for that. Mars-Saturn can feel like obligations become intense or weighty, or like it's too much too fast. Mars is a quickening, and Saturn is a planet that symbolizes where our vulnerabilities are, really, because Saturn wants us to be strong. If Saturn were a person, that's what Saturn would want. Saturn is about exposing the things that Saturn is about exposing our vulnerabilities so that they can become stronger and more resilient. So I want you to think about that this week, especially if there's something that you're working with now where you feel like things are a little bit uncertain or a little bit shaky. This is an opportunity this week to strengthen and to be real with yourself as well. Mars Saturn is definitely about being real with yourself. Let's see. Saturn will also sextile Jupiter. That's more of a minor aspect, so I'm not going to talk about that a whole lot, but for the astro geeks out there, that is something that's happening as well. And then on Wednesday we have our, let's see, yeah, it should be Wednesday no matter where you are in the world. We have the first quarter moon in the sign of Cancer. And so first quarter moon it's kind of like a point in the waxing lunar cycle, so where we're moving forward, where you can decide to pivot or to redirect, to go further into what it is that you're already working on, or to change direction. And so I want you to notice that if there's something that feels like something that's been bothering you or something that you're trying to work out earlier in the week, I think that there's a good opportunity to reevaluate that and to see what it is that, where are you going with the things that you're creating in your life, and even more so with the Mars-Saturn action happening. I'm going to take a quick look at the comments just to see if you guys have any questions. Hi, it's good to see you all. Hi, Justin, Jennifer, Sharon. Awesome. Okay, cool. So let's see. Let's talk about, and as I'm going through, if you have questions or something that you want me to speak specifically about, I won't talk about your personal birth chart because I can't do justice for that through a live like this, but questions that you have about the astrology, or if there's something in your life that that's happening that you want to share, feel free to do that in the comments. So also, let's go to Venus. So Venus is also changing signs this week. Venus is moving from Taurus to Gemini. And so this is happening on Friday. So what I would say is, if you have any kind of meditative ritual or magical or ritual kind of things that you like to do, that are Venusian kind of things, if you want to do any kind of rituals around Venus work, this last little bit of Venus in Taurus is really great because Venus is in its rulership in the sign of Taurus, and so any efforts that are Venus in nature are going to go much more beneficial, or there's going to be like more oomph in there. And that's not to say that you can't do Venus rituals after this, but Venus being in its own rulership in Taurus gives you an extra boost. Let's see. So Venus will be changing into the sign of Gemini, and then just by the nature of that, Venus is going to make a trine to Saturn right when it does that, because Saturn is in Aquarius, which is an air sign, right? And if you've been following me, and especially if you've taken classes with me, you know that when two planets are in the same element, so if they're both in air or water or fire or earth, if they both share that same element, then they are making a trine to one another. So Saturn in Aquarius, air sign, Venus moving into Gemini, also an air sign, they're going to make a trine. So Venus-Saturn is really lovely also for building foundations, for strengthening social bonds. So I really like that this is happening, even though, Venus is moving out of its rulership, but Venus in Gemini, I think, I'm wondering how things are going to feel as far as connections via social media and our ability to adapt to connecting with each other in a way that embraces technology, because Gemini I could definitely see as being related to technology, and Aquarius as well. So so I think that Venus's move, Venus's transition, this allows us to really, again, be real with relationships, Venus-Saturn, and to to prioritize as well, to prioritize the things that are important to us. All right, let's see. I'm just checking how I'm doing on time. Let's also talk about Mercury, Neptune. So Mercury will conjunct Neptune this week. Mercury, Neptune, it can be like super creative and really great for things like meditation, creativity, for anything where it's more of like a keeping things down low and relaxed. It is kind of difficult to do linear thinking, or that's not really the vibe of Mercury, Neptune. Mercury is the mind and thought process. Neptune is about spirituality. It's about dissolving individualness. It's about blurring the edges of reality. So again, when you're doing any kind of creative work or meditative work, that's a good thing, typically, depending on your goal, of course. So I think that as far as like planning and brainstorming practical solutions, that may not be necessarily where your mind is at this week. I think this week is more about like the themes that we've talked about with the Mars Saturn and the Venus Saturn. I think it's really more about focusing on what's important to you and getting clear more on feelings than necessarily on logical action plans. I hope that makes sense. Justin asks, does the first quarter moon in Cancer have an impact on our houses? That's a great question. So what I would look for if you're interested in following the lunar cycles is to look where you have Cancer in your chart. So which house rules Cancer? And if you know your rising sign, you can just count from your rising sign through the zodiac, starting with your rising sign as 1 and going around that way. And then you can look at, okay, what house is that activating? What area of life is that? And you can work with the energy that way. Let's see. Aileen says, hi there, you do great work. Thank you. Do you happen to have any tips for me? I'm a Leo lady. Thanks. Tips. You have to be more specific. I think that, so when I'm doing these are definitely more general than if I were to do a personal reading for you. And also when we're talking about simply your sign or even just simply your rising sign, it's still going to be too general where, you know, if you wanted more information, then we would look at I would want to either look at your chart as a whole or just do the transits of what's happening in the sky. I hope that makes sense, because we can look at what the energy is in the world, like what's the tone, what's happening, and then we can look at your personal birth chart and your personal life as well. So okay, cool. So as we're talking about this, I'm wondering what of these themes is most present for you in your life right now. So especially around your physical energy, your physical vitality, how are things going? How are things going in your relationships? Do you feel clear about what your priorities are? And I mean, I think this is important too. I mean, just given what is happening in the world, I don't know where you are or how you're personally impacted, but I would bet that your life is very different now than it was maybe a month ago. Your routines are different. Your lifestyle is different. And so I think that we can work with the Mars-Saturn energy to give ourselves more resources physically. And then we can work with the Venus-Saturn energy to find a sense of power and autonomy within our values and our relationships, and so that the things and the people that we really value line up with what it is that's most beneficial for us, that we most enjoy. So I'm going to pull a tarot card, and I want this to be more of like a reflection prompt for you. So I'll tell you a little bit about what I mean once I pull the card. But this is going to be kind of like a journaling prompt versus advice. I hope that makes sense. Let's see. Okay. Aileen, I see your question and I want to speak to that in a moment. And I'm trying not to make this too long as well. All right. Oh, wow. Okay. So this is the Tower. So the Tower is about dramatic change, often unexpected change. And the Tower for some people can be a scary card because it's quite dramatic. And the Tower comes in usually when there's something that we already know that has been like needing to change and needing like quite dramatic change. So this is your reflection question. I would ask you, and you can journal on your own, you can leave a comment and share with others if you like. My question to you though is, what is it in your life now that is radically changing or that needs to radically change? So some of you might be in that Tower energy right now. I know a lot of us are. I know a lot of people who are having to like rethink their entire business strategy, their entire livelihood strategy, and how do they cope during quarantines, and you know, how do they survive? What do they want? I think this is also bringing up a lot of questions for people on what, again, like Venus, Saturn, what is very important to you. So my question to you would be, again, like what is changing? What is toppling over? And how can you move into that energy instead of fighting it? And that is what I would ask you. So, all right, cool. Hi, Stephanie. All right, so we'll close, but I did want to address Aileen's question because I thought it was a good one. What did you ask here? Let's see. How can I work with the energy of the planets? I want to be creative and think of business more outside the box. Okay, cool. So I like this question because I think this is something that a lot of people are dealing with right now, especially people who literally cannot work from home or have no ability to do their work online. So people that are like hairstylists or massage therapists or servers and things like this. So I would say if you want to approach this from an astrological vantage point, okay, so I'll give you a few different answers. From an astrological viewpoint, I would start with your birth chart. I would start with, what is your chart saying are your sweet spots? Like, what does the chart say is a place where you do well? So I think that we have to start there because it's like, okay, are you a person who really needs structure and routine? Or do you thrive, and I know some people like this, not everyone is like this. Some people thrive off of uncertainty and like being called and having an inspiration. Some people, those kinds of unstable situations are crippling for them. So, of course, you know this for yourself as well. You don't need me to look at your birth chart, but sometimes it helps to pull apart what is true for you versus what you've been told or what you've been doing and patterning and things like this. So you can again reflect on what is important to you, what kind of environments and what kind of routines are important for you, and then like what are your, so that's number one. What are your skills? I think that anytime that you have a planet that's in high dignity in your chart is a great place to start, because that planet is always going to do much better. It's going to just flow more freely. So like we just talked about this week, Venus is transitioning from Taurus, which is the sign of rulership, into Gemini. So Venus in Taurus is going to be strong in a person's chart. It's going to, no other things withstanding, it is in a place of power. And so things flow more freely versus Venus in Scorpio, that person has to work extra hard around Venus things. So, so if someone is, let's say, they're a creative person, they do creative work, and they have Venus in Scorpio, we would look at, okay, maybe creative things, Venus is like they have to work really hard. But I don't know, maybe they have a really strong Mercury. Maybe they have Mercury Uranus. Maybe they have Mercury Uranus together, and this person has skills around writing or teaching, or they can push their boundary around doing things like education in their field. And so those are just some ideas. I realize that that's might be kind of a ramble, but I think that it helps to look at where your skills are and what works for you. So what actual skills do you have that you can offer around your business, and what do you like to do? Because we always have to start there. I feel like there's a lot more I could say about that. Maybe I'll make another video about that. I hope that this was helpful for you. I hope that you enjoyed this week's astrology, and I hope you like the live. Let me know, and let me know how you're doing. And yeah, wishing you a wonderful week. I'll see you soon. Bye.